Good evening. You're tuned into Business Day right here on ET Now. I'm Avan Dabash. Let's take a look as to how the markets shut shop this Thursday before we take you through the top headlines. Well, it was expiry day and as expected, volumes were on the higher side, but we didn't even manage to grasp onto that 6,050 level. You had the market breadth, which was absolutely even Steven by the day's close, and it was a fairly flat day of trade all in all. Quite a few results came in, and all in all for the series, it has been pretty good for the frontline indices, which gained close to 3%. So 6,034, that's how the Nifty shut shop, with the Sensex lower by 110 points at 19,894. We get you all of the top stories, including the big results for today after the headlines. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram's fiscal prudence measures get an endorsement from Standard & Poor's. The international ratings agency says the chances of an India ratings downgrade is less likely now thanks to the government's efforts to get the fisc in order. Jet Airways moves closer to a stake deal with Etihad. Top officials of both the carriers, including Etihad CEO James Hogan and Jet's Naresh Goyal, met Aviation Minister Ajit Singh and Commerce Minister Anand Sharma. Singh says he sees no hurdles to the deal. India's second largest bank, ICICI Bank, posts more than a 30% jump in the third quarter profits, driven by higher interest income and rich dividends from subsidiaries. The bank's managing director and CEO, Chanda Kochar, says she expects the interest margins to improve in the coming quarters. The Telecom Department issues bid documents for the 2G spectrum auctions in March. Existing players will be treated on par with the new entrants, and large GSM operators may challenge move to auction 900 MHz spectrum along with CDMA licenses and 800 MHz spectrum. Well, let's take it to the top story at this hour. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram's efforts to set the fiscal house in order have started paying off. International rating agency Standard & Poor's said that the possibility of India's rating being downgraded is less likely now, as the recent steps taken by the government are reflective of the positive economy. S&P believes that once changes happen at the ground level, and once that happens, India's outlook can be reverted to stable. They, however, do not have high hopes of big structural reforms in the budget. In fact, DEA Secretary Arvind Mayaram expects more rate cuts by the Reserve Bank later this year. In an exclusive chat with ET Now, he says that India has the potential to achieve an 8% growth in the next 2 years, and also adds that the Finance Minister is committed to reducing the fiscal deficit and that the threat of a ratings downgrade is overplayed.
If you read the Governor's statement carefully, he has also mentioned that inflation is coming down, and he expects it to be further moderating through the year. And so we can look forward to some more positive action from the Reserve Bank during the year. I also believe that our potential growth rate, which is 8%, we should be able to achieve in the next 2 years or so. As far as the rating downgrade is concerned, I think it's also overstated. Finance Minister has categorically stated that under no circumstances will he allow fiscal deficit to slip below above 5.3% this year and 4.8% next year. And this you would be able to see in the budget numbers itself.
Well, moving on, let's get you a detailed view as to how the markets panned out for today. Well, on the day of expiry, you had the Nifty, which wasn't even able to clutch onto the 6,050 mark. It ended well below that. For the broader markets, it was a little bit of a different picture. It was a mid-cap index, which did fairly well for itself, so up by just about 0.6%. And for the small-cap index, it was exceedingly quiet. Real estate and PSU, those were the two baskets which led from the front. And on the other hand, you had oil and gas and banking as an index, which was largely volatile through the day. But by the end of the day, it shaved off just about 0.5%. Big gainers included some of the result reactions as well as the entire PSU banking lot. So PNB snatched up a good gain of almost 10%, Bank of Baroda, BHEL, as well as DLF. Well, let's walk you through some of the important earnings for today, staying with PNB then. And it reported a great set of numbers on all parameters, which investors clearly cheered. Q3 profits came in at 1,306 crores. That's well above our estimates, higher by 13.5%. Net interest income stood at 3,733 crores. And the asset quality was fairly stable for the bank. Net interest margins remained stable as well. Union Bank of India, that too, investors gave it a big thumbs up as the profits came in higher by 53% to 302 crores and net interest income was clocked in at 1,891 crore rupees. Once again, you had the asset quality which was fairly stable. Net NPA stood at 1.7% versus 2.06%. Allahabad Bank, though, that was a bit of a dampener. You had the profits which came in lower by 44% at 311 crores. Net interest income was also lower by 3.6% at 1,330 crore rupees. Asset quality deteriorated 2.91% in terms of gross NPAs. And you had the net NPAs which stood at 2.06% versus 2.1%. Pardon me, the asset quality was stable for Allahabad Bank. Lupin also put out its numbers. The EBITDA margins came in at 24.2%. The profits saw a growth of 43% this time around to come in at 335 crores. And top line growth was also healthy at 2,465. You had Grasim, which also put out its quarterly numbers, and this time around it was a bit of a disappointment. In terms of the bottom line growth, 549 crores versus 669 crores. The sales growth came in higher by just about 7% at 6,717 crores. The company did sell the entire 15% holding in Alexandria Carbon Black, and they will be selling 2.75% holding in Thai Carbon Black. Siemens, meantime, that put out a fairly good set of numbers. The counter ended higher by just about 1%. You had the profits which came in largely flat, 73 crores versus 71 crores, and the top line growth was higher by 3.8% at 2,450 crores. Margins for this quarter stood at 6.5%. Godrej Consumer, well, it was a little bit disappointing in terms of the numbers, a little bit reflective on the stock price as well. You had the profits, which came in higher by 3% at 172 crores, and sales, which were higher by 25%. EBITDA margins contracted, and the advertising expenses were higher by 61% on a year-on-year basis. Well, then to some stocks in news, take a look at Suzlon and the kind of traction you witnessed today as one of its units, RE Power, won a 350 megawatt order from Canada. Moving on then, DLF was also in focus as it plans to sell 150 megawatts wind power assets to BLP Vayu, and the value did come for that. It's 282 crores in order to pare down their debt. Apart from that, Scooters India was in focus today. The cabinet did approve the revival plan for the same higher by 5%. Gujarat NRE Coke, well, JSPL made an on-market cash offer to buy the Australian arm, offering 0.2 Australian dollars for each share of Gujarat NRE Coke. And they do plan to, in fact, raise the offer price for the same. And as the management indicated, they are not satisfied with the current price. Moving on then, Oil India, you had the OFS floor price which came in, and it is set at about 510 rupees, which is a discount of close to 5% to the last traded price. Some of the big losers for today, well, Tata Power sulked in the session. Some of the private sector banks like HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank lost out despite a good set of numbers. And Ranbaxy too was in the limelight on the downside. Well, all give and take for the entire series. You had a pretty good run-up for the frontline indices. The Sensex went on to gain a good 3%. The Nifty was higher by 2.8%. There's where the disappointment came. The broader markets off by 1 and 3.4% respectively. It was the IT index which flexed its muscles this series. Oil and gas following suit, and real estate too had a pretty good run-up. On the downside though, metals that shaved off 3%, auto was a bit of a disappointment and largely quiet for the power index. On that note, time to get in some expert opinion on the markets. We'll start off with Sandeep Shah, who believes that the budget is going to be a critical trigger for the equity markets.
Unless something can happen in this budget which will catalyze retail sentiment, which will catalyze the depressed parts of the economy into recovering. Until such time, I think that, we will have to be a little careful as the market rallies, because these bull runs have rarely lasted for more than 15 months on average. That's not to say that they can't last a little longer, but I think that's the broad view. But I still maintain my view that the upside for the market remains, say, closer to 64 to 6,600, but the downside could even be 52 to 5,400.
As the finance minister has been elucidating during his overseas roadshows, were to come about, and the math does work out for a 5.3% fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP that he is expected to present during his budget speech, the central bank and the governor are going to be only far more motivated, and therefore it is only natural.
All right, moving away from that then, let's get in the sense as to how the F&O activity panned out on the final day of expiry. We've got Navneet Saluja standing by from our research team. Navneet, it was characterized by pretty high volumes.
Well, that's right. The volumes on NSE by the end of the day were about 2.3 lakh crore. And, well, if you look at the series overall, it was not a good end, but yet we gained about, the benchmark indices at least gained about 3% in this series. And the January series closed at about 60.35. And to start off with the February series, which will kick off tomorrow, that's trading at 60.67 with 32 points premium. And that added 32 lakh shares in today's trading session. Well, if you look at the Nifty rollover, that stood at about 58%. And the options data, the Nifty PCR currently is at 1.05, and if you look at the options data for the February series, the range what you're getting is 5,900 on the downside to 6,200 on the upside. And talking about the stock futures, well, it was a lot of result reaction which came in today. So you have stocks like Punjab National Bank, which had a stellar run-up. Long positions were being built up for the February series. You also had Bank of Baroda, which did well. On the long side, you had Lupin and Siemens. Both the companies came out with their numbers, reacted positively to that. And short side was HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank. And from the mid-cap space, you had Colgate Palmolive, which was down, and Suzlon and Adani Ports. They did quite well in today's trading session.
Thanks very much, Navneet, for giving us the latest in the F&O action. Moving on then to the aviation space, you had Jet Airways, which shaped up very smartly today on the back of the news that Abu Dhabi-based Etihad is all set to buy a 24% stake in the company. The top management of both the airlines met the aviation minister as well as the commerce minister today. Let's get the contours of that deal from Sumit Chaturvedi. Sumit.
Well, the top brass of Etihad Airways and Jet Airways was in Delhi today. They met first Aviation Minister in the morning and then Commerce Minister Anand Sharma in the afternoon. What we're getting from the sources is that the deal is almost finalized. They are working on the broad contour of the deal. The deal can be announced within a week's time, while Jet Airways will sell 24% in the airline to Etihad for around 1,500 to 1,800 crore rupees. But the broad things about management structure are still not into place. Well, Aviation Ministry sources are telling us that Etihad will not get any special treatment, while Jet Airways will continue to get the benefits which are given to Indian Airlines. Well, this is the main crux of the whole thing which happened today. What we are also hearing is that, well, Jet Airways will like to shift its base from New Delhi to Abu Dhabi. Well, this is going to be the first entry of a foreign airline buying into Indian airline after the government allowed foreign airlines to buy up to 49% stake in Indian air carriers. That happened in September. So this is going to be the first deal, and many more deals are yet to come. But yes, Etihad's top management, including its CEO, are still in India, and the deal can be announced within a week's time.
Thanks very much, Sumit, for giving us those details. Meanwhile, Aviation Minister Ajit Singh said that he does not foresee any problems with the Jet Etihad deal and that the government is addressing the concerns of the foreign carrier.
Jet Air and Etihad have been in consultation for quite some time. So their Etihad delegation was here today. It was just a meeting, get together, know each other. As I said, we discussed the weather.
So deal expected to happen in some day.
You and me all know that unless this deal is signed and approved, you can't say that deal is done. But I don't see any problems.
You think that it's a good time to come and invest in Indian markets? What do you say about the Indian market?
We're still in discussions. Thank you.
Well, among the big earnings today, the country's largest private sector bank, ICICI Bank, posted 30% growth in its net profit, beating street estimates. They were driven mainly by strong growth in the net interest income, which was higher by 29%. Loan growth was above the industry average at 20%, and the bank also saw a drop in its provisions on account of improving asset quality. The stock price was driven up on account of the numbers, but sold off by the end of the day and ended close to the lowest point on account of a bit of profit booking. Here's Managing Director and CEO of ICICI Bank, Chandra Kochar, talking about what helped improve the bank's asset quality.
Mainly on account of two reasons. One is the large chunky accounts are not there. Previous quarter there was one large chunky account. So any quarter that you get one large account, you may see a slight increase. The second is that we do also continue to get good recoveries or write-backs from our retail portfolio at least. So, on a net basis, therefore, the reduction is not high. Going forward, we recognize it's important for us to keep the CASA ratio between the 37 and 40%, the range in which we have been operating. Yes, it's not going to be a very easy task, but we will continue to focus, and as we have performed in an environment which has already been difficult, I think we've been able to do it. We'll continue our efforts and continue to achieve that.
Okay, let's break down those numbers in greater detail. We've got Anirudh Ghosh standing by with the details. Anirudh.
Yes, ICICI Bank has come up with a good set of numbers, beating street estimates with a 30% growth in the net profit to 2,250 crore rupees. This, of course, is driven by a good growth in their core income, their net interest income, of course, growing by 29%, and their asset quality also, of course, improving, which led to a degrowth in their provisioning. Provisioning has come down. Also, we've seen their restructured assets kind of remain at the same level because of the simple fact that they've seen a lot of upgradations and recoveries on that front. So clearly a good set of numbers as far as their asset quality is concerned. As far as their margins are concerned, also the bank managed to maintain them at the 3% level. On a year-on-year basis, of course, it's expanded by some 40 basis points. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, they've actually been maintained at about the 3% level. Going forward, of course, the bank is expecting that margins are going to be maintained at these levels. They're also expecting credit growth to come in at about 20%. The only point of concern, though, is the fact that deposit growth for the bank has come in at a sluggish 10%. The management, of course, telling us that this is something that they were deliberately doing given the fact that they were very comfortable with their liquidity, given the fact that they're getting a lot of liquidity coming in from their foreign branches as well. So clearly going forward, not too much reason for concern if we believe what the management says. They're also maintaining that they're looking at better deposit growth going forward, growing a number of branches and also maintaining their credit growth and their margins at these levels going forward.
Thanks very much, Anirudh, for giving us those details. Moving on then, a day after Oil India's divestment plans received the go-ahead, the deck is now cleared for the government to divest its stake in NALCO. Market regulator SEBI has come out with a new offer for sale norm that could fast-track the divestment process. Mrinalini Krishna now joins in with the details. Mrinalini, tell us what these new norms are.
SEBI's new norms for offer for sale have definitely set the ball rolling as far as NALCO's divestment is concerned. Now, SEBI's new rules have relaxed norms for the requirement of the company being a top 100 market cap company if it has to go through the offer for sale or the auction process for share sale. The SEBI's new norms say that if the company is a top 100 market cap company in even one quarter of the preceding 4 quarters, it can go in for an offer for sale. Remember, this was the biggest impediment for the auction route as far as NALCO's divestment is concerned. NALCO did not meet the two conditions, neither of the promoter bringing down stake to meet the minimum public shareholding norms, nor being a top 100 market cap company. And this relaxation, as sources say, will definitely clear the decks for NALCO's divestment. In fact, sources in Finance Ministry indicating that the 12.5% stake sale by the government in the company could come by March this year. Remember, the government is hoping to garner about 1,500 odd crore rupees. So clearly, this is the government pushing the pedal as far as divestment is concerned, and NALCO is set to be the NALCO issue is set to come to the market by March this year.
Thanks very much, Mrinalini, for giving us those details. Now, with less than 6 weeks, the Telecom Department will conduct round 2 of the spectrum sale, and the Telecom Department has issued the bid documents for these auctions. Existing players will be treated on par with the new entrants, which may result in a legal tangle as the large GSM operators may challenge the move to auction the 900 MHz spectrum along with the CDMA licenses and the 800 MHz spectrum. Gauri Dwivedi caught up with Telecom Secretary R. Chandrasekhar for this exclusive interview.
It is not that licensees who are due for renewal are treated as new entrants in every sense of the term. It is only with respect to certain conditions relating to the quantum of spectrum that needs to be bid, both in terms of the floor and the ceiling, and the quantum for which a preference would be given. And in fact, the bid process actually recognizes that those licenses that are coming up for renewal have a certain preference over everybody else in respect of two things. Number one is the prescribed limit for spectrum, and similarly with respect to 2.5 megahertz in the 900 megahertz band, for which they would again be given preference over all other bidders, given the same price.
As far as companies like Vodafone are concerned, they have gone and said that these guidelines are actually illegal and violate license conditions, and they will go to court. Do you think that could actually derail the entire process of auction?
All the steps that have been taken are legally sound, and more than that are also fair and transparent.
BlackBerry has unveiled its long-delayed new devices, but a later-than-expected US launch could derail the product before it even gets consumers' hands. Bobby Rebel reports.
And today is actually not the finish line. It's the starting line.
BlackBerry CEO Thorsten Heinz proudly unveiled the first two phones in its long-delayed BlackBerry 10 line. But if you're looking to buy one in the United States, you're going to have to wait until mid-March. Investors did not like that and sent the stock down more than 8% at one point. CEO Heinz, though, defended the setback.
It's not a delay. We always said we will be launching in first quarter 2013, so I think we're keeping our word. The reason is that the European carriers, their testing process is, let me say, quite shorter than with the US carriers.
But the delay could hurt, according to current analysis' Avi Greengart.
The market they're competing against is not static. So a phone today that has a beautiful high-resolution display, well, right now there are one or two phones that have even higher resolution displays, but in 3 months' time, who knows?
And while there are a lot of positive reviews out there for the new devices, there are a lot of skeptics wondering if BlackBerry can make a comeback.
What they need to do is convince consumers to buy this instead of an iPhone or an Android phone. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with those products.
The company also announced a name switch from the Research in Motion corporate name to the BlackBerry brand name, all part of a planned comeback for the former industry leader, which now has a paltry 3.4% share of the global market.
Moving on then to the big news. For the first time since the ban on Kamal Hassan's controversial film Vishwarupam, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha has spoken out defending the government's decision. She claims that the attempts were not made to target Kamal Hassan in particular. This comes even after the centre has backed Kamal Hassan, claiming that it is time to revisit the Cinematography Act.
If he has taken a decision to produce a movie with a mega budget running to hundreds of crores, and if he has pledged all his properties for the same, that is a conscious decision that he took. So how can the government be held responsible for that? How can the government be accountable for that?
That brings us to an end of this edition of Business Day. Thanks so much for watching.